If you're an injured worker in California, you have a right to workers' compensation benefits, but you might have a very hard time finding a doctor. That's what we're discussing in the 32nd episode of the Inland Empire Workers' Compensation Lawyer live stream podcast. My name is Attorney Alexander Napolin. I'm here with my co-host, Attorney George Abuado. So if you're out there and you've been injured at work and you just can't get in to see the doctor, you don't know where to even start, you have all these types of questions, you need to call a lawyer, you need to dial the injury helpline at 844-984-8414. But do stick around for the short discussion that George and I have put together. It's going to give you a little insight, give you some general information about why you might have a hard time finding a doctor in the California workers' compensation system. So what's going on that makes it so hard to find a doctor in the California workers' compensation system?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm really excited to discuss this with the people out there, Alex, because we have to set expectations, right? A lot of times they want to go with the best attorney possible, and they find an attorney that they think they can be comfortable with and they can trust, and then they find themselves waiting and they don't know what's going on. And a lot of times I think that has to do with miscommunication at the initial stages of the claim. And I want to discuss what goes on with that and why it's so hard to get that initial appointment, okay? And that has to do with several factors. Doctors nowadays, because of changes in the work comp system, they're more hesitant to take on a client, a patient in this case, right? So getting a doctor might be harder than it was maybe 3 years ago, 5 years ago, where there was a lot of doctors and they would take anyone. As attorneys for the injured worker, Alex, our hardest part is getting them the right medical treatment with a doctor that we trust and we know is going to do a good job. So answering your question, why does it take such a long time to get a good doctor or initial primary treating physician appointment on your workers' comp claim? There's several factors, and it kind of comes down to, we got to split these, I think, into two different types of claims, right? We have the accepted claim, where we might also have a delay period in there. We might have a delay period and a denied claim, but an accepted claim and a denied claim. And those are going to be deciding factors on what type of doctor you see, right? Does that make sense?
Right. So if you have an accepted claim, you're saying you're going to have to get authorization from the insurance adjuster to see that doctor.
Right.
After you've gotten the doctor to tentatively kind of agree that they'll see you in the network that your employer has for you.
Right.
And then if they say yes, then your employer the insurance company is going to give you an authorization, and then you're going to go get an appointment.
Correct.
And it might take some time.
Right.
And that's a whole process.
Right.
Now, if your employer is just sending you down to the industrial medical clinic, you might going to get the appointment right away. You're going to see a revolving door of doctors who may not have your best interest at heart.
Right.
So on these accepted claims, we're dealing with these medical provider networks. What should our audience know about these medical provider networks? And just selecting a doctor, where can you find that information?
Great question. We actually have a video on that, Alex. We'll put a link to it right here, and our listeners and viewers can go see that video and learn all about medical provider networks. So, Alex, you're completely right. It's a process and it takes some time. I want to briefly discuss the process prior to even looking for a doctor and selecting a doctor and requesting that medical provider network from the insurance company. Even before any of that happens, we have to prepare the documentation to file with the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board, the Court for Workers' Compensation. We have to take all that documentation and serve it on the employer, on the insurance company. If there's an attorney already, even before we came on the scene, we have to serve it on them as well. So we have to serve it on multiple parties. So that takes some time as well. Okay, so before we even are able to get a doctor, we need to serve all these documents so that we can request the information from the insurance company, and they could say, okay, we recognize you as the proper attorney for this person. We're going to send you all the information for them, as well as our medical provider network. At that point, we have to look at their medical provider network, and there's a couple of different things that we have to look at as well. One being the distance that our client, the patient, is from each doctor that we might be interested in. So if we choose a doctor for someone in Los Angeles that's 20 miles away from them, but it takes them 2 hours to get to a medical appointment, we might be causing more harm than good. There's a lot of factors that take place when we're picking a doctor after we've already filed, sent those notices, and gotten that medical provider network.
It sounds like there's only so many doctors in the medical provider network after all that time.
Right.
You wait to get the medical provider network. Now, your adjuster, if you've been injured and you filed a claim, you don't have a lawyer. George just described, how much time it takes to file the claim, and for us as lawyers to get that, that link information from the adjuster for that medical provider network. You might have that information right in your possession. You could bring that to your lawyer or to us, and we can go ahead and look at it right away. So one of the things that George mentioned, which I think was a really good point, is people, if you're in a remote area and you don't want to have to drive 20 or 30 miles to your doctor because it's going to take several hours, well, the network is the requirements are quite small for this network. So it may be there aren't very many choices for you. And it can delay how long it takes for you to get an appointment when there's only so many choices, because those doctors will have limited availability. What else goes on an accepted claim that we need to discuss for delays?
Yeah. So another big part of an accepted claim that causes problems is the type of injury. So you wouldn't think that would matter. If a doctor's willing to treat, they're willing to treat, but that's not the case. If you have already received treatment from a physician for your injury prior to this, the doctor's going to take a look at those medical reports. If there's surgery, that is a huge factor, because doctors, I would say like attorneys, Alex, we don't like to take responsibility for work that has been done by another professional. And what I mean by that is, if you've already had some treatment and even a surgery, the new doctor is going to have to assume responsibility for the after effects of that and then treat as you are now, right? So if they don't know the other doctor, or they are not comfortable with taking on a patient that has been treated by another doctor, they'll just say no. And they're well within their right to review everything and say, nope, I don't want to be the treating physician for this person. So now that complicates it even more. We have to move on to the next doctor and now provide all the information to them. They have to review it and see if they're going to treat or not. So even on an accepted claim with doctors available to treat, we still might not even get an appointment, because the doctor will be denying that patient treatment. We have to move on to the next doctor. They might do the same thing. So a lot of things have to align for a doctor to say, okay, it's an accepted claim. These are the body parts that I treat. There hasn't been treatment that I'm not comfortable with on this claim. I have availability to take on new patients. I accept it. And there's an authorization already. I accept the new patient. Now we're able to schedule the patient, but even then it might be 2 weeks out. It might be a month out for that appointment. So, Alex, you've been doing this a long time. You have a lot of experience. Workers' compensation is a slow process. And I think that this video is really good, because clients, potential clients, and people that are injured at work now have to understand that even though your attorney might be doing the best job possible, there could be delays. The most important thing is to communicate with your attorney, have a clear understanding of what the process is, so you understand what those delays might be, and you're not over here thinking, my attorney's not doing anything. Why don't I have an appointment yet? There's reasons for that, and that's why I'm glad we're discussing this.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. A lot of workers go into the system, and there's just these huge delays that they experience, and they've never experienced this type of process before. So what they think of a process is they sign a contract at Verizon and then they get their phone right there. And that's the extent of their understanding of like a legal transaction. Well, when it comes to workers' comp, it's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of processes, it's a lot of administration. There's judges involved, there's doctors involved, there's all kinds of moving parts, and it takes a long time to get your benefits sometimes. And unfortunately, that's the case in the insurance companies. They don't really they have time frames, but they're quite large. So if you're out there and you have an accepted claim and you're not finding that you're getting a doctor quickly, it could be because of a number of different reasons that we've discussed in this video so far. But remember, it's not legal advice. This is just general information based upon the experiences that we've had as lawyers, just trying to give you a better understanding. If you're injured and need legal help, dial 844-984-8414. That's an injury helpline. But what about if your claim's denied, George? We've discussed accepted claims.
Yeah.
What about delays on medical treatment for denied claims? Because I think if the claim's denied, that means the insurance company, like let's say that the injured worker who's watching this has received a denial in the mail. So they're saying, okay, that's great. All that stuff's fine, but my injury's denied. What are they looking at in terms of medical care?
Yeah, so a lot of injured workers receive a denial, and a lot of those denials are inappropriate. I've dealt with hundreds of cases, or even thousands probably, that where the injured worker received a denial, but it was so off base that we were able to quickly overturn it, right? And you know what's funny, Alex, is that a lot of times a denial might be helpful for a claim. If you receive a denial and you don't have an attorney, that could be detrimental to your claim, and you might not know where to go from that, and you might not be able to overturn that. But what I'm saying is, if you have a great attorney on your side, a seasoned veteran that knows how to take the denial and use it to your advantage, it's going to help you out. And let me tell you one way you could use that denial to your advantage. As you know, we have labor codes. One of those labor codes, I'm not going to bore you with the actual labor code number, but one of those labor codes allows for you to request a panel immediately after you have received a denial. It's a legal argument. They're saying that you are not entitled to benefits, to compensation, to medical treatment because they're denying the claim. But you can turn around and take that denial, use it to your advantage, and immediately request a panel. Now you're on the fast track to a panel. You haven't gotten any medical treatment, but you might be able to immediately get a doctor through a panel, get an appointment, and go to a neutral doctor that can quickly help you overturn that claim. If they find an industrial basis for your injury, if they find that you are injured and they require testing, it's going to be hard for the employer, for that defense attorney to take that QME and try to continue with the denial. They'll have to overturn that. They might have to accept the claim. If they don't, that's basis for us to file for a court hearing and possibly take the matter to trial and get that overturned. So that might be a fast track to getting it accepted.
All right, that sounds like a good idea. But what else can delay your medical care on a denied claim?
I would say that a denial could also maybe expedite your medical treatment through a primary treating physician. And the reason that is that you're not bound by an MPN. When your claim is denied, now it's up to your attorney to find a doctor in your area that fits those qualifications. Just like we discussed before, they have to be able to accept you as a new patient. And in the areas that we discussed, it could be very difficult. So, that's why the denial is going to help with the QME. That's going to take us. But when your claim is denied, you have the option to go to any lien doctor to treat. You don't have to stay within the MPN. Now, I will say this, Alex, and you know this. Lien doctors are becoming harder and harder to find because the way the process works, so our potential clients out there, our clients out there, and our viewers can be familiar with this, is if your claim is denied, that means the insurance company is not paying for your medical treatment. So how do we get you medical treatment? We have to find a doctor that's willing to give you treatment without getting paid until the claim is resolved. At that point, they will actually fight with the insurance companies over payment and try to obtain as much as they can. But nothing's going to come out of your settlement. You have nothing to do with that. You don't have to go back to that doctor and figure out how you're going to pay them. But they have to fight for whatever they think they deserve. So will a doctor accept a client that is on a denied claim? Maybe, maybe not. If they do, it's going to be on a lien basis, and they're going to have to fight for whatever they deserve. They need to be compensated at the end. So it's hard to find those doctors as well. But the good thing is, if you have an experienced attorney, they have connections and they have doctors that treat on a lien basis that they use all the time, which will get a good report to be able to fight that claim once we get to trial like we discussed. So, a denial can be a two-edged sword. It could speed up your claim. It could expedite your claim to go to a panel qualified medical examiner, and it'll open you up to doctors that might not be able to treat you within the MPN, but there's pros and cons on both sides, right? Obviously, you want your claim to be accepted. But if it's denied, you do have options. And if you have an attorney that has gone through this and has the experience, it could be beneficial to you if your claim's denied and you have a good attorney on your side.
So just because you're facing a denial or you think your claim is going to be denied, it's not the end of the world. What you do is you call a lawyer to give you a free legal consultation.
And not a lawyer, Alex, the best lawyer.
Attorney Alexander Napolin and George Aguado, my co-host here on the Inland Empire Workers' Compensation Lawyer
Definitely
live stream podcast. So that concludes episode number 32. Remember the injury helpline, 844-984-8414, or visit our website, www.workerscomplawyerie.com.